Hello, this is Kenny Williamson, and welcome back to another episode of Melchizedek Chronicles. In today's episode, I think we're going to try to keep it a little shorter today, but today I wanted to talk to you about the fake Blue Origin flight. Now, I'm sure you've seen it. It's all over the internet. It's all over the news that Jeff Bezos, you know, the guy that owns, I guess he owns Amazon, among other things. He sent an all-female flight crew up into outer space. Now, it just so happens that one of these females on this crew was Katy Perry, the singer. Okay. And another one was this guy's girlfriend. Her name is Lauren Sanchez. And that's Jeff's girlfriend that he's been seen with everywhere and talks about. So picture this. You have a group of women who don't know anything about outer space. Okay, they don't know anything about, by the looks of it, anything. And so we take this group of women and we stick them in a spaceship that looks very suspiciously like a giant male appendage, okay, if you know what I'm talking about. So a spaceship that looks phallic in nature. And if you don't know what phallic is, just go look it up, but it is a part of a male's body, okay? So we have a spaceship that looks like something off of a male, full of women, and it goes up into outer space, and we get to see them supposedly float around and joke around and have a good time out in outer space. And then, of course, it comes back down to Earth, and unlike NASA, okay, NASA always lands their stuff in the water, you know, like the last one where they land in the water, and of course, it's got, you know, the parachutes come out, and they look fake and CGI because they are. And then dolphins come out to meet them in the middle of the ocean, you know, fake dolphins. And then we've got the ship being loaded, you know, the capsule loads up onto a ship. And people notice that the ocean in the background is on about a 10 to 20 second loop. So they'll watch it really close and then it loops and starts again. So not even the real ocean. But for some reason, NASA, they always, you know, put their fake space stuff in the ocean. But this Blue Origin, he all puts his fake stuff out in the desert. So, you know, I don't know what the difference is, but so this thing comes in, supposedly been in outer space. It lands with a big puff of smoke underneath, you know, dust. And all these women are on board. And so they get the film crew and everything out there for this thing. And, you know, this thing has got a special bolted door that only opens, you know, from the outside. And it's got this special tool that has to be used on these deadbolt, like these things that have to be spun. And this tool looks a lot like a tire iron or a, you know, a four-way type device. Apparently, I'm assuming like a socket on one end with a bar. And so you insert this into a latching mechanism, and you have to turn it to get the door to open. Okay. Of course, the only problem with that is in the unedited version that wasn't aired on the news, which I have a copy of this, by the way, on Patreon. I put a copy up on YouTube and on TikTok if you want to see it. So they're out there talking to these women in this, you know, spacecraft, and they open the door from the inside, you know, like as if to open it. And there's a lady out there. She's like, no. So they hurry and close it again, and she kind of stands in front of the door. And then they roll everything up there and wait for the news crew to get settled. And then Jeff himself walks up there with the special tool that you have to, you know, open the spacecraft door with. And so he really gets it out, and he's, you know, because this can only be done from the outside. Of course, we've already seen the door open and then shut. So it's just a little flimsy, very flimsy door. And so then he starts to mess with it, and boom, the door just pops open. And so he's like, oh, I guess I didn't need the tool after all. Seriously? This thing just came supposedly from outer space. They open the door from the inside accidentally too soon. And then, because, it's all staged event, it's all fake. It's all theater, folks. Okay. So they accidentally open the door a little too soon, so they have to shut it. So then the part that they air everywhere that you see, in fact, I've even seen guys talking about it, about the door and how, Jeff tried to get the door open and the door opened really quick and he mumbled something about he didn't even need the tool, and they laugh about it and they talk about how flimsy the door is, but they never mention the video right before that where they opened the door themselves from the inside. They don't ever show it. Of course, why would they? Because then it would be the cat would be out of the bag. So can you imagine this? Okay. Let's send up a group of women into so-called outer space. Okay. And one of them's Katy Perry. I guess maybe, obviously if you know who Katy Perry is, she's a devil worshiper. She's a devil. Her songs have got demons, devils, Satan, the whole 9 yards. So she goes into outer space, and of course, I think she's the one of them that got back out and kissed the ground. But I'm here to tell you guys, this stuff is fake, and it's theater. Okay? Number one, you can't get to outer space like they claim. Okay? You're under a firmament. So you ain't getting anywhere to begin with. It's fake. So it just stands to reason that if you're going to pull another fake stunt, like after this fake NASA stunt they just pulled, let's throw in all females. Let's throw them in a rocket ship that looks like a giant penis. And, let's have Katy Perry on there, and let's have Lauren Sanchez on there, which is Jeff's girlfriend, who looks like she's made of plastic, about as fake, disgusting plastic as you could possibly get. And, let's air it nonstop, 24 hours a day. We've got news about, illegal immigrants raping corpses over here in New York on a subway. But, let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about the crime and the illegal immigrants and, the whole race thing they're still trying to push, and the whole transgender thing that they're pushing on you. Let's talk about outer space. Let's discuss Mars. Okay. Let's go land on Mars. I'm here to tell you it's fake. Okay. It's part of a satanic agenda, if you don't understand that already. Okay. We're getting really, really close to the end times. Okay. And in the end times, there's going to be lots of deceptions. And if you haven't noticed, they have really ramped up this UFO thing now. People are supposedly seeing UFOs all the time. We've got drones in the air that they're claiming aren't ours, or they're UFOs. We've got more footage coming out that these people are seeing UFOs. These UFOs are demonic. Okay, they're demonic in nature. They're not aliens from outer space. Okay, that's fake. And to perpetuate this fake space, what they're doing now is, now we've got more missions to space. We've got Elon Musk sending up, spaceships to outer space to, rescue trapped astronauts. Now, I don't happen to know if you noticed, but they had videos of these trapped, astronauts in the fake station, as I call it. They're trapped up there supposedly for 9 months. And right before they come back, they interview them. And they've got a guy up there, a third person, interviewing them. So we've got a reporter on the fake station interviewing these people. And you know what? Nobody ever asked the question, well, who's he and how'd he get there? I thought you were in outer space. But now we've got a reporter. He shows up and interviews them before they get rescued. And where'd he come from? How'd he get there? And they've got videos of him up there. And of course, nobody mentioned how he got there or how he got back. And nobody seems to ever mention how these astronauts seem to have everything like, Christmas rolls around and they've got all the Christmas decorations. Super Bowl rolls around. Well, they've got Super Bowl decorations, they've got, in fact, they're even wearing jerseys for the team that won. How did they know who was going to win? How did they even know who was going to be playing? Because, these guys supposedly went up for like 8 weeks or 8 days and somehow got accidentally stranded for 9 months. So you wouldn't think that if a person went up there for 8 days, they would take with them jerseys for Super Bowls that haven't even been played yet. Teams, you don't even know which team's going to be in it, but they've got the jersey. Hey, let's go ahead and take our Christmas decorations and our Christmas hats because, that's 7, 8, 9 months away. But hey, we're only going to be here for 8 days, but let's go ahead and bring all the Christmas stuff too. And, of course, let's get stranded in outer space and let's get all emotional. Let's get everybody bought into this thing with their feelings. Their feelings. Everybody has feelings they have to think about. So let's get everybody attached with their feelings. And let's blame it on, Joe Biden or blame it on Trump or whoever it's blamed on that these guys didn't get rescued. But we're going to rescue them. Everybody, let's get behind it. And let's send something into outer space and go pick them up. It's never been done before, but Elon Musk to the rescue. Elon Musk is going to take us to Mars. Okay, he's going to put a base on the moon. Okay, it's fake. This is all part of the fake coming alien agenda is what I think. I think in the near future, whenever people start disappearing off this earth, probably, during the rapture or the catching away, they're going to have to come up with a excuse to do this. They have to have an excuse to unite people. And I believe this is for the New World Order. This is for a one world religion that's coming. I think to get all these people united, what they're going to do is they're going to have a fake space alien threat, okay, that's going to threaten mankind as a whole. And they're going to come out and they're going to say, oh yeah, all the people on planet Earth out in outer space, we've got to unite. We have to unite because there's space aliens coming. We have to fight the space aliens and we have to get people onto Mars. And in actuality, it's all fake. There's no such thing. And what better way to try to get this in people's minds is to send a bunch of women out into outer space, with their fake lips and their Botox and their puffed up fake lips and their duck lips is what they are. Let's get the fakest, crappiest looking, worldliest people we can possibly find. And devil worshipers, they don't have any problem worshiping the devil. Let's get them out there and let's send them to outer space in a rocket that looks an awful lot like a giant, what, and let's put the women right up in the head of it. Okay. You see what's happening here? It's phallic worship. This goes all the way back. This is a satanic deal that goes way back. All these so-called obelisks that they have all over the world, all over the earth. They have them in Egypt. They have one in Washington. They erect these giant obelisks that look like male body parts. That's what they do. That's what they were. And that's not true. Well, in Egypt, that's what they had them for. They worshipped these different fake pagan gods based on sex. These big fake pagan gods had all kinds of different things. They had male and female sex organs, some of them. But the biggie was they always had these male organs sticking out where everybody could see it. And that's what everybody worships. Just like Ishtar, which is coming up, our Easter holiday, which, there are other people in the past that use this same holiday Instead of calling it Easter, they called it Ishtar and Ishtar. And it just so happens this is a trans god, a trans pagan god that has male and female body parts. And they're worshiping this trans god called Ishtar. And then many, many years later, we have a Christian version of it called Easter. And if anybody wants to know anything about that, that's why during Easter we have bunny rabbits and we have Easter eggs. And people are like, well, I mean, I always questioned that. Never could get an answer. Never could get an answer. But I was like, what does an Easter bunny and Easter eggs have to do with Easter, with Christ? What does that have to do with Christ? Well, nobody can ever give you an answer. And let me give you the answer if you don't know. Nothing. It has nothing to do with Christ. That is part of the pagan holiday, Ishtar, that has creeped in on top of everything. Okay? Ishtar, like I said, had to do with worshiping a pagan god that had male body parts sticking out. Okay? And it had to do with sex and reproduction. Okay? It was a orgy is what they would have. So what they've done is they don't want to come out right and say that anymore, so they try to well, I guess what's my word I'm looking for here? Glamorize it. They take something that's a pagan and filthy, and then they try to make it nicer. So you don't have any problem doing it at church, see? So you can go to church and look up your Easter eggs and get your rabbits and all that stuff. In actuality, the Easter eggs, have to do with fertility. Okay? It's like a woman's eggs. Okay? And the rabbits have to do with, well, if you know anything about rabbits, they mate a lot and they have lots of babies. So rabbits are known for that, and there's lots of worldly, filthy jokes that talk about rabbits and how often they mate. So the reason Easter we have today has Easter eggs and Easter bunnies is because it was a pagan holiday that had to do with sex worship. Okay, and so now we have rocket ships going into outer space that look like sex organs. I mean, there's a reason for that. Okay, everything, it goes back to the past. Satan has put these pagan gods in place thousands of years ago. All they are is fallen angels or demons or devils. Okay, that's what they are. They took on human form, or they took on some kind of weird form like an animal or something or whatever they were, and people worshiped them as pagan gods. They made statues and they made holidays, and that's a lot of the holidays we have today. A lot of the statues and things we have today are remnants or allude to that. For example, like a lot of church buildings have these big steeples on top. Now, I follow a guy who has done lots of research on that, and those come from ancient Rome, and they were symbols of men's body parts. They were phallic. So they would put these big pointy things on the top of their buildings, and they were phallic in nature. Okay, it has nothing to do with God. It has nothing to do with Jesus Christ. It has nothing to do with the church. Okay, it's phallic from Rome. That's what they worshipped. So that has crept in to everything we have today. Okay, to churches with steeples, phallic. Okay, we've got obelisks all over in these big cities in Washington, phallic. Okay, we have rocket ships that look like men's body parts, phallic. And then we line them with women, fake, worldly, devil-worshipping women that come out of the big phallic thing when it lands. And people buy this stuff hook, line, and sinker. Okay, but I just wanted to throw this out there. Don't you think it's odd that here lately we've got all these trips into so-called outer space and we've got to really get, we've got to get Musk into outer space, and NASA's falling down on the job. And it's kind of like the space station. I've been reading a lot on this, what I call the fake station. I don't believe it's real. I don't believe it's in outer space, because there is no outer space as described. I believe this stuff is being filmed in a Hollywood basement somewhere, or over there in Texas in the big, huge mock-up of the space station that's underwater. Okay, so this thing's being filmed over there. That's where these so-called astronauts are hanging out. They're hanging out somewhere in an apartment, something on a government facility, being fed, and they're just living their normal lives. And every once in a while they get filmed, with their fake CGI backgrounds, and they're always hanging from wires. And sometimes you can see the wires. I mean, it's fake as all get out. I think only a fool would believe it personally, but however, I digress. That's where these people are at. They're not in the vacuum of space. Your money that's going to NASA is being laundered. Okay. How do you think these people get so rich? I mean, if you pay attention to any of this stuff that Doge is supposedly doing, they find these people, like just any of them, just pick one. They have a salary of $100,000 a year. They've been in their position for 3 years, and they have $25 million in the bank. Okay. So where did all the money come from? Well, they're getting kickbacks from this stuff. Okay. All this U.S. aid stuff that they're getting kickbacks on, but they're also getting kickbacks on these huge government contracts. For example, supposedly, the space station, they're wanting to take it down, supposedly. Supposedly, they're wanting to dismantle the space station and take it down. And so guess who, was going to get or has got the, like $800 million, contract to dismantle the space station and bring it down? Well, that's Elon Musk, of course. He's the only one that can do it, right? Well, I could do it. Pay me, because I don't believe it's real. And so there is nothing to take down. So in other words, that huge amount of money that taxpayers are going to pay to supposedly, remove and dismantle the space station, that money is going in somebody's pockets. Somebody's going to be very rich because there's no work being done. Now, there may be some CGI graphics created somebody has to pay for, and we may end up with some kind of fake junk laying on the ground, supposedly that was in outer space. But other than that, it's a money laundering scheme. The NASA deal is supposedly siphoning off anywhere from $70 to $76 million a day, depending on which item you read here. But it's around $70 million a day. Every day, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year since 1958. Okay, it was probably less back then, but it's getting higher. But they started NASA in 1958. So is there any wonder that you have some very rich politicians, and you have a bunch of very rich people trying to go to outer space? Okay, well, you see where they get their money. Okay, and of course, you're going to hear people say, "Oh, well, they've got a robot on Mars." Sure they do. Taking pictures. It's always taking pictures. And of course, people have found out that lots of these pictures look exactly like Devon Island right here on Earth. But hey, that's okay. Just look the other way. And here a while back, they have a helicopter flying on Mars, according to them. Helicopter flying on Mars. Can you imagine that? Helicopters here in the United States or on the Earth, they require air to fly, but not if you're on Mars. Not if you're on Mars. Anyway, so yeah, I watched a couple of videos on that helicopter. It's one of those things. If you had a remote control helicopter here on Earth, you would have to charge it up constantly. It might run for a few minutes before the battery went dead, and your battery wouldn't last very long. They never do, no matter what you do. You can't keep them very good for very long, unless it's in Mars. if you're NASA and you have a helicopter on Mars that runs on batteries, I guess it flies for years. I don't know how long it flies for each, but somehow it gets charged and somehow it flies around where there's no atmosphere. So, they've got a remote control helicopter flying around on a planet with no air, according to them. So anyway, I've got lots of stuff on fake moon landings, and I've got stuff on fake space, and lots of stuff on flat Earth. So I don't believe a word of it. I think it's all fake, and I think there's a reason they're ramping it up, and it's in the news constantly, and they're making it look like it's just so easy. They just send some people up into space for a day, they come back, this is no big deal, and that way you'll believe it. They want to make it look so simple and so easy that there's no reason why you would not believe it. I mean, that's what they teach. That's what they're claiming. The news reports it, so it must be true, right? I'm here to tell you it's fake. It's a deception. There's a reason why they're wanting everybody to think this, and I think it has to do with the end times. I really do. Even old Werner von Braun, who was one of the Nazi guys that had to do with starting of NASA, he told his secretary on his deathbed that it was all fake, that there was no space, and he said the very last thing they're going to try to implement is they're going to tell people that we need stuff in space to protect us from alien invaders. And he told her, and the funny thing is, it's all fake, all of it. Okay, he had to go along with it or they would kill him. Okay, so he had to go along with it, but on his deathbed, he told her that it was all fake. And she turned around and published a book later, many, many years later, and says it. Of course, they claim, it's not true. And then on his headstone, he had Psalm 19 put on his headstone, which is funny because, Psalm 19 talks about the firmament, that God's firmament shows his handiwork. Well, why would he say anything about the firmament? Because he's been to outer space, or he hasn't, but supposedly his rockets sent astronauts to outer space. Well, you can't get to outer space if there's a firmament. Okay, the firmament blocks it. And the Bible teaches that there's a firmament. This guy on his deathbed said it's all fake, and then had something about the firmament put on his headstone. So just think about this logically, okay? That's all I want. Just think about it logically. It's fake. It's all theater. That's why they're sending, that's why the billionaires are involved, billionaires on paper. People that shouldn't even be billionaires. We don't know how they got to be billionaires, but billionaires, the richest people in the world, supposedly. And of course, your satanic Hollywood people, your Hollywood people, they're on there too, so it's fake. But anyway, I hope this podcast helped you. I hope you listened to it and liked it. If so, be sure and, check out our website. I've got truthseekersministry.org you can check out. I've also got itsflatbro.com you can check out. And we have a lot of books for sale on there. And like I said, you can go to Patreon. I've got links to Patreon, I think YouTube, X, all that stuff is on one of those or both websites. And you can also contact me anytime at truthseekers2012@gmail.com. So thanks for listening. I hope this helped you in some way. Keep in mind, none of this means anything if you're not saved. So don't wait any longer, because you don't know how much time you've got left. So put your faith in Jesus Christ before it's too late. Thanks for listening, and God bless you.